And I want to welcome all of you. We have a handsome and very involved group of people here, and I appreciate all of you coming out. We tried to arrange for a really nice day. Didn't succeed on that.
For my husband.
Um, I'm Alan Borsuk. I work here. And to me, this is part two of programs we've done and currently here on what I would regard as a hugely important subject. I suspect everyone in the room would agree with me, which is reading and getting more kids to be successful readers. We all know that this is a statewide problem. It's a nationwide problem. It's particularly a Milwaukee problem. And there are new things happening. I say part two because I think it's 4 weeks ago, somewhere around there, we had a very successful program here with Maya Smart, who is in the room. Where'd she go?
Oh, yeah.
There she is. And who had written a book and is associated with the Marquette College of Education. And her focus was on early childhood. As the title of her book says, Birth to Six. And she had a lot of very practical and useful advice for parents and advocates for kids on how to get more kids early on, not only on track to reading, but being engaged in learning, being engaged in positive educational pursuits of all kinds. So I want to thank Maya again and welcome her here. This time the focus is more school age and up. As I suspect everyone here knows, Wisconsin has a now, the 2.5-year-old almost law, Act 20, which dramatically changed the climate for teaching reading in Wisconsin, what's called the science of reading, and actually banned certain practices that had been commonly used in Wisconsin schools. So we have 4 people here who are in 4 different ways very involved in this subject. The focus, as I've told them, that I'm hoping to have here is definitely on what is going on. I'm not so much interested in debating the merits of the law and science of reading, but what is changing, where are we, and where do we need to go if we're going to have actual impact, positive impact on the overall levels of reading success here. And with that, let me introduce the 4 people very briefly. I'll start on the far end from me here. We have one change in the lineup. Representative Joel Kitchens, who's the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, was scheduled to be here. I got a call last week that he had an unexpected medical situation, including some surgery, and he is out for a little bit here. I do wish him well in terms of his health. And Representative Bob Whitkey from Racine County has been kind enough to step in and is a worthy alternative. He's a former president of the Racine School Board and has been in the state legislature since 2019, including time on the Education Committee and a lot of involvement currently in the audit functions. Your background is in tax work, I believe. So Representative Whitkey is here as a worthy substitute. To his right immediately is Barb Novak, who is the director of, I should get these titles correct here, the literacy office at DPI. I hear a phone. We always should announce if you could turn off your phones, that would be good. Barb Novak is, give me the correct title, is director of the Office of Literacy at DPI, also known as the Wisconsin Reading Center, and is basically the person who, from the standpoint of the Department of Public Instruction, is overseeing what's going on pursuant to Act 20. In the middle there is Gabby Bell Jimenez, who was with Madison Schools and was the reading chief for Madison Public Schools for a number of years, and came to Milwaukee earlier this year.
July 2nd.
July 2nd, okay. As the academic superintendent for literacy for Milwaukee Public Schools. And immediately to my left is Carrie Strife-Stussy, who is the head of Forward Scholars, a very active and well-structured, I might say, tutoring program, largely in Milwaukee Public Schools. I think you've got one or two outside of the system now.
Bruce Guadalupe.
Yeah, I was going to say you added Bruce Guadalupe this year. Okay. Let us start with Representative Whitkey. And my broad question is simply, how are things going in pursuit of Act 20? I should add that there was a nearly 2-year delay in releasing the money, $50 million, but then it was pushed over into this biennium, so now there's at least money flowing. How are things going?
How long do I have?
Well, my wife wants to serve supper about 5,
okay. So So you get the second team.
No, I don't agree with that.
I'm just qualifying myself. So if it goes off the rails, I got an excuse. So Act 20, I was involved quite a bit, but I wasn't the author of the bill. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I believe it was brought about. Some of us have realized that we have not done a good job of teaching kids how to read up to this point. We have some real problems with racial achievement gap, which can't be ignored. Being the worst in the nation, I don't know about any of you, but I don't take any particular pride in that. And I think because the conversation nationwide has gone to, we're not teaching kids the right way, and so they're losing skills or not getting skills as they get to 3rd grade and beyond. So there was the desire to do something legislatively in Madison came about last session, and three things have to happen. There was an agreement between the Assembly, have to get the Senate on board, and then we have to get an agreement with the governor that he'll sign anything that we send through. So we worked, the bill was worked through with the Department of Public Instruction, and it was designed to try to take us into a direction of setting something statutorily so that we would try to do a better job in getting kids to read. If I had the silver bullet for that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would be making millions touring the country. But I have always believed, and it was, especially last session, if we were not going to address literacy, it would be another failed attempt. So, first of all, as always, when you sit where I do to the west, the first thing you have to do is agree upon money. So we took a step in the right direction with $50 million. I would have preferred 150 to 200 to possibly 100 million in funding to get some programs going. Then you sit down and try to get a framework that you think will work. So a couple of things that were put into the bill. There's something called a universal screener that was brought in from a previous session, which is designed to test students to see where they sit and how we should be approaching teaching them how to read. We wanted to make it so that if you converted curriculum, and after I had toured a couple of different school districts in other places, I believe more money should have gone to professional development, and that's what I was fighting for. So we went and worked through creating a bill. I will stop short of some of my opinions. If you want those, you can contact me. I'll be more than glad to sit down with you outside of this venue. There were some things that I didn't like about the bill, but if we could get it passed, if we could get the money out there, it would be great. So, like I said, it started to put a structure in place. One of the main things the bill did is it created a literacy council, something I wasn't a big fan of because I believe that there's a lot out there that we could have used to get something done faster without more bureaucracy. But once again, if you would like to shadow me, there are some interesting things that go on that you got to either close your eyes and say, okay, we got to move forward, or you can fight it all day and put out press releases and get us nowhere. So we get to basically the end, and everybody agrees. We end up passing the bill. It gets signed into law. And then there's a delay in getting some of the administrative provisions implemented. Okay, so that took some time. The council, I think, just got off to a slow start. That cost more time. And then I will take credit. We screwed the bill up because if you do something in the last stages of the session, January, February, possibly March, things move faster than you can think. And sometimes, I hate to say this, there are different factions reading the bill and assuring you that certain things are in there instead of sitting down, because you've got, at any point in time, 100 bills flowing through on any one session we do during that period of time. So we thought we had everything done properly. And I know we asked the question out of my office, where's the spot to put money for professional development? Found out once it was passed that there was no place. There has to be a hook in each bill so that joint finance can push the money that we've allocated out into those spots. Wasn't there. So then I'll take credit again for doubling down on a mistake. Senator Strobel and I said, we can fix that. So we thought we had fixed it, only to find out that there's a lot of times when you're looking at funding and so on, there are different ways that things are pushed out into the real world. And we put it in a spot where it would have increased funding for a number of different school units that it wasn't designed for. It would have increased what those different units had. So the governor unconstitutionally vetoed the bill. So then that triggered a court case, and we finally did have a fix to it to start this session back in January. We would have moved it. The Senate did not want to move it until the court case was decided. So it did get decided in our favor, but now if you can look at that, it wasn't done until May, June when it went through Supreme Court hearing. So now, if you think about it, money that we thought would be out the door in January is now out the door. Well, not even out the door, but could be out the door as the current fiscal year for most school districts and so on is done. So then we had to deal with a couple of other things. So the bill didn't contain any look back. So if I changed curriculum last school year, I couldn't apply for any grant, which causes problems. But like I said, you got to own up to what the bill does. So the push now I've had is to say that we've got to get the money out for professional development. And if you go, I've been to a number of districts that have taken things on their own and have made some great strides based on some of the things that we put in the bill that were logistically a type of curriculum. You'll hear talk about science of reading versus they call it a 3 queuing method. And what's interesting is I've seen a documentary that shows the difference between two kids that are sitting side by side. The cueing method does things like gets you to trigger off of pictures in a book and so on. And it was really interesting because they had two kids read side by side. They both were perfect. Then they covered the pictures in the one student's book. He couldn't even start the first page. Didn't understand it. So the bill is designed so that it prohibits districts from using that type of method. You want my opinion as to how it's going?
Well, yeah, briefly.
Well, I can go on forever.
Are we making progress, in
Some.
your opinion?
Some. We have a long way to go. I mean, I think until everyone in this room, until everyone in the state joins together and says, we have to do what's right for kids that are in classrooms. I don't care what classroom they're in. I don't care where they're located. Until we bind together for that and quit bickering about other political things, we will never raise the bar. But there are some districts that are doing some good things. And so I would like to see if we can do some things better. But right now, there's probably not any major legislation that's coming through that will do something else.
The nearly 50 million that was held up for 2 years is now, I think Barb Novak may have some numbers here, is now either going out or about to go out, much of it. But in the current budget, other than that $50 million, the number that's in the state budget is zero. There's no additional money.
That is correct.
You said you wish it was 150 or
Yes.
more. Is there any hope of getting more money? And can progress be made without adding more money?
I'm always hopeful. There's always hope that more money will be put into it next session.
Next session, we're talking about spring of
the
2027.
budget's already been decided, and I don't see any legislation coming through that would allocate more. And I don't know. There are some bills that we're working towards and some things that I agree with. We're working with a bill that's going to give one of the schools that's tied to the UW the ability to get some additional money so that they can become what they call a demonstration school. And I've seen some of the things that they are working with to try to show other districts, other school systems, how to teach reading, how to operate in the classroom. And I'm very hopeful that I believe that might pass. The other thing that I would say is that I happen to agree with, and this is a bill that didn't get anywhere. I sat down with Dr. Fuller and some of his team. They happen to agree with some of the things that I agree with, that we need more professional development. And that's how you're going to get more students reading, because teachers are going to be better equipped to deal with that. And lastly, the dean of education at Wisconsin is from this area. And I've told her, I said, you should be here every week promoting to people in this community that we need to start to step up and get kids to read, because it's the most important skill they'll have.
Barb Novak, you've been involved as a teacher and as someone at DPI for a long time.
Yes.
Well before you got this new title, about a year ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
What's changed and how's it going?
I was not prepared for the Act 20 historical tour. And I sometimes joke that I'll sometimes say that was not on my Act 20 bingo card. So like a trip to the state Supreme Court, not on my bingo card. The challenges, like the real nuanced parts of getting the funding out to schools, not on my bingo card. But I think between the legislature and the department, we have arrived at a place where we are getting the money out to schools. So the $50 million is held in 3 separate pots. There is a pot specifically for early literacy assessment, and we have had access to that pot of money from the get-go. That allowed us to pay for the screener. That allowed us to reimburse districts for the cost of diagnostic assessment. If a student's below the 25th percentile on the screener, diagnostic assessment is required so that the teachers actually understand what the student's strengths are and what the student's needs are. And then that information from the diagnostic assessment, along with other data that the school has from the family or from other caregivers or other information about the student, all gets combined to create the student's personal reading plan. So we had money for the assessment. There's a pot of money, $9 million, for the early literacy coaching program. And the largest pot of money is $38 million, which includes reimbursement for curriculum purchases and for professional development training. The registration costs for the professional development training are reimbursed at 100%. So we have distributed to date. We've paid all of the claims that have been made, and we've distributed $1.8 million, which is everything that was claimed to us. Administrators had to complete that training by July 1 of 2025. 5K through third grade educators had to be enrolled in the training by July 1 of 2025. So we're very hopeful and pretty confident that we'll be able to work with the legislature so that folks who may have been enrolled after July 1, that we can still pay out the money for their registration costs. We're talking about people like a graduate from an ed prep program in May of 2025 who didn't get hired until August 1st. That's the sort of situation that we want to be able to pay for. Or someone who was a 5th grade teacher last year and is a 2nd grade teacher this year and needs to be enrolled in that training. So we are very optimistic that we'll be able to distribute much more funding for those registration costs. We have distributed, I got to make sure I get this number right, around $4 million for early literacy curriculum purchases. Statute allows us to reimburse at 50% of the purchase price for the materials themselves. We have paid out so far the claims that we have been able to pay out, which is the vast majority of them. There's a handful of folks, and we are talking about purchases that were made from January 1 of 2024 to the current day. So we were able to go back retroactively. The January 1 date comes from when the first Early Literacy Curriculum Council list was published. Now, there are some folks who purchased editions of curriculum that were previously on the list that the council hasn't approved yet. The council has agreed to review those new editions to make those reviews their priority so that the folks who purchased those new editions are able to get reimbursed if the new edition is approved by the council. So once we have new lists from the council, we'll reopen the curriculum reimbursement so folks who didn't purchase the first time through would still be eligible for reimbursement this time. So 1.8 for PD training, 4 for curriculum, and a total of $38 million that needs to be spent by June 30th of 2027 because it's part of the biennium budget. So there is a significant chunk of money that's still hanging out there. And when we think about some of the costs, I think districts are the best place to really ask where the biggest costs have been for them. But there are costs around implementing a personal reading plan and costs around strengthening universal instruction through things like coaching that aren't currently funded in any way. Of course, we would need to work with the legislature to find ways to ensure that we're able to spend every single penny of that $38 million. The applications for schools to participate in the Wisconsin Early Literacy Coaching Program, those applications went live yesterday. Anybody will select the equivalent of 36 full-time positions to participate in that early literacy coaching program, and there is no red tape from the department that would prevent a school who is selected to participate from getting their coach in place yet this year. The beauty of that $9 million is that it's not part of the biennium. It's part of a different funding source, so that does not have to be spent in full by June 30th of 2027.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. One of the keys, as you said, is screening kids to see who needs additional help, namely that they're in the bottom 25th percentile ranks nationally.
Mm-hmm.
So just last week, you, DPI, submitted a report to the legislature on how that screening is going. And that was going on even as the rest of the money was held up. So the 25th percentile nationally, statewide, it was 37% of kids, third grade and below, who were found to be in need in that category of 0 to 25 percentile ranks and in need of individual plans. And in some schools, including in Milwaukee, it was as high as 80% or over, pushing 90% of kids who were in that bottom quarter of readers. What does that say?
It says it's a starting point for us. We've had screening legislation in place since 2012. That was actually the first thing I did at the department 13 years ago, was implement a statewide screener. Then we went into a place where, because of requests from schools and districts, we went into a place where schools and districts were selecting their own screener. So that moved us away from statewide data. And now we're back to statewide data. So what we have is baseline data. Now, the baseline data came from mid-year of last school year. Schools were, because the contract wasn't in place until mid-July of 2024, in the 24-25 school year, schools had the option of beginning their screening in 5K through grade 3 in mid-year. So the data that's in that report that Alan is referencing begins in mid-year of last school year. So what we have is one data point that looks at one part of early literacy. It doesn't look at reading comprehension. It doesn't look at writing. It doesn't look at listening, but it does look at reading foundational skills, which we know are highly predictive of success in other areas of reading. And we have a baseline data to have a statewide conversation. Schools had been screening before, but that aspect of talking statewide really sounds different now. And there's also other areas in the legislation that are allowing people to talk between districts. So there's a definition of science-based early literacy as including 9 components. Things, reading foundational skills, but also things like writing and reading comprehension and vocabulary. Things that we know that I imagine were also part of your last conversation about birth through 6. Things that we know are also a really critical part of reading instruction. So I think at the local level, when folks start to combine what they learn from screening with what they learn from other data sources in their district that they collect locally, we're able to have really rich conversations about what's working, who is it working for? Yep. And what needs to stay and what needs to change.
I mean, the law requires that all of these kids who are in the bottom quarter of the national percentile rankings are supposed to get individualized help. Is that happening?
The report does include data that shows the number of students that were below the 25th percentile, as well as the number of students that had a personal reading plan. When you look at the data, you'll see that at any given grade level, there's around it's no higher than 4% difference between the number of students that were below the 25th percentile on the screener and the number of students that had a personal reading plan. So there is a slight difference. We're talking about very young kids on an assessment at one point in time. And if there is data that shows that the screening assessment was not 100% accurate for that student, perhaps the student has a lower level of risk, is getting reading support, but not the level of intensity of a personal reading plan, those students are comprising that no more than 4% in any grade level.
In your view, overall, is Wisconsin making progress, and what needs to be done in 25 words or less? I mean, in real broad strokes.
I agree with what Representative Wickey said about professional development. in the area of reading and in the area of really understanding our students and really understanding their families and what all of the languages are that they bring to school, and positioning those languages and their out-of-school experiences as assets. That as a school, we understand and we validate, affirm, build, and bridge between the students and families' literacies outside of school and the students and families' literacies inside of school. The professional development about how to teach phonics and phonemic awareness and reading comprehension, I am not discounting that in any way. That, together with professional learning about how to really study whether we're meeting the needs of all students, is critical and expensive.
Gabby
Yes.
Bell Jimenez, you came from Madison, and
Yes.
you had, frankly, a really strong reputation there for moving things forward. What did you find when you got to Milwaukee, and how's it going? And I might add that there was a
It is
school board committee. No, it's not.
Not a trap.
There was a school board committee meeting. I believe it was November 13th.
Yes.
That spent about an hour on this, and it was not such a happy conversation, because especially this training and professional development wasn't unfolding very well. So what's your reading of what's going on in Milwaukee Public Schools?
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? It is really impressive to be sitting on this side. So this accent is absolutely real. I am an adult English language learner, and when I get passionate when I'm talking about things that I'm passionate about, I kind of speed up. So can you be my anchor, my friend? Don't let me go more than 10 seconds if people lose meaning here. Yes, so I am new to Milwaukee in a sense, but absolutely not new to the work. I have been doing this work for a quarter of a century. And it is tricky to look and sound like me and have the audacity of going to work every day to teach people how to teach reading in English, which makes it really, really interesting. People kind of have to lean in to listen to what you have to say. You're absolutely right. I come from serving in Madison for 13 years. When we engage at that point into the shift into science of reading out of our own volition, at that point, because we did that before the legislation came in, which meant that at that point, the change was about 80% adaptive and 20% technical. It was about appealing to the hearts of people to whether or not they were willing to put in a balance all of the work, all of their effort, all the things that they knew about themselves as teachers, especially the number of hours that they were pouring, the heart, the years that they were pouring into the education of children, and whether or not those efforts were resulting into the academic achievement that they were expecting. And having to say, if you are putting your best effort forward, and families are sending the kiddos to school because they trust you, but the academic achievement is not changing, what is the in-between? And the in-between were the pedagogies, right? If you're working so hard, the question ultimately is, are we working and teaching in a way that the human brain is most likely to learn how to read and write? When I came to Milwaukee a few months ago, a lot of that time of the 2 years on the on-ramp had already happened. So I came in a lot to ask questions and to find out where was it that we were in relationship to the journey, that adaptive part of the journey, that technical part of the journey, and to be able to make sense of the data and to support the instructional component. So think about change management, especially in an organization that is as large as Milwaukee Public Schools, as having a really, really large ice block. Can you imagine it? Put it in your head. You have a very large ice block, and you're onto a journey to making this beautiful ice sculpture. So you have two choices. You can kind of use blunt force and hope that you don't break the wrong part, or you can engage in melting the ice a little bit, shaping it, and freezing it again. And then melting the block again a little bit and freezing it. And over time, you're going to accomplish what you are desiring to do. And I am very happy to report that it has been, so far, it's been a lot of work, but it's been a wonderful adventure. We have been melting the ice block. So let me tell you some of the things that we're shaping for. I am very proud to share that even though change is difficult, we started this school year with a historical shift into securing minutes from kindergarten to 5th grade for the explicit teaching of word recognition and word study. And that is new. And it was hard. It continues to be really hard because that is not the way that we have been doing it. But we are doing it. We also did something that was really, really interesting that we have never done before, not at a systems level, which was to put reading and writing together, because the human brain benefits from having reading and writing opportunities that speak with each other. And as we were melting the ice block on the corners to be able to get to these things, we got to practice with different ways in which we were packaging and putting together the instructional guidance. That was a lot of the conversation that you saw in that board meeting. We benefit from feedback. I believe personally that feedback is a gift. If anything, we benefit from really, really loving partners, our teachers, that grant us and offer us feedback. And organizationally, we believe that we are in service of teachers and students, because at the end of the day, if teachers have the professional development that they need, and they have the high quality instructional materials that they need, and they have the time that is required to be able to teach, that our students are going to undoubtedly rise to those. So through the feedback that we received in the November professional development and feedback that we received since I got here, we have shifted into acquiring the high quality instructional materials that are needed for us to be able to engage in this journey. So that was a long way of saying it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. It's been exciting work. I have the pleasure of going home very tired at the end of every day. But grounded in an undoubtable knowledge that if we teach our children by supporting our teachers, the kiddos will learn.
Well, let me ask a blunt question.
Of course.
Overall, is the teaching staff on board? Because I listened to that committee meeting and I wasn't so sure. The union's been resistant. There was one teacher there who testified that things were terrible.
Yes.
And board members were saying their phones have been flooded with complaints from teachers that the training's not working, this is bad, this else is bad. Are people on board for making change?
I am so grateful. I want everybody to know that I did not pay Alan to ask me the question because I really want to answer it. If you listen to the collective of the board meetings, which are public record, you will see that overwhelmingly the concerns and the complaints and the gift of feedback that was given to us came in the form of the instructional guidance, because up to this point we have not had access to the physical high quality instructional materials that we need, and the ability for the teams to be able to access professional development to be able to make sense of those things. At no point I have, and I could go to a court of law on this, receive feedback from our colleagues from the union, teachers or principals, on whether or not the shift towards the explicit teaching of word recognition and the integration of reading and writing for language comprehension whether or not that was a right move. So that means that minimally at the organizational level, we believe wholeheartedly that the teaching of word recognition and language comprehension in the way in which the legislation requires, that is supported by science, have been supported, but that we needed at the technical level to ensure that we have the materials and the professional development that goes with that. And we received support of the board, and we are receiving those high quality instructional materials, the physical materials that we need for us to move forward as a semester.
MPS for at least 25 years, and I might add the charter schools and the voucher schools aren't much different, has been locked at 20% or less of kids who are reading proficiently.
That is true.
It just hasn't gotten better.
That is true.
Is it going to get better?
Yes, it will.
What's realistic to expect?
Oh, what is realistic to expect? I think that it's realistic to expect that we organizationally are going to create yearly markers to be able to make sense of the implementation of high quality instructional materials. We're going to make sense of how professional development is resulting in change of practice, and how is it that both of those variables are in fact resulting into increased achievement through the universal screener because it has high predictability. Our aspirational goal for this year is to be able to start the implementation of the high quality instructional materials, deliver the professional development so we are set out in the right path and with all the tools that we need for the beginning of the school year, and to increase the percentage of students that are up over the 25th percentile.
Carrie, you thought I'd never get to.
Oh, you can
respond. It's great to go last. I love getting to hear
You were a teacher in Milwaukee. You were a teacher in Tulsa. You went back and got a PhD in teaching this kind of stuff. And you are I believe, co-founder is the correct term for Forward Scholars.
Executive director.
And executive director.
Kicker offer.
The kicker offer, okay. Which means you're in the trenches a lot. Yes. And how many schools now? 10, roughly?
10. Mm-hmm.
And I've been a couple times with you, particularly at Barbie School on the north side. Intensive and well-structured tutoring, mostly done by trained but not professional educators, retirees, many of them. How much impact how's it going now? How much impact do you think you're having? And more broadly, what are you seeing as what's changing and what needs to change?
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be able to go after all of you and find connections. Yes, I started in MPS sort of like you described about 26 years ago and have seen the data every year talking about the opportunity gaps that we have for children and recognizing that it's an urgent issue and not something that can just keep waiting. And as I listened to each of the professionals up here, Representative Whitkey and I were talking beforehand, and I had written down resources shape results, because Act 20 was a great idea. And Act 20, the idea that we need to implement evidence-based curriculum and science of reading for all children, absolutely. The minute it came out, I was on board. And I saw, oh, great, we're going to focus on the things that really matter. When you look at meta-analyses, they tell us that focusing on curriculum, right, the evidence-based, high-quality, structured literacy curriculum, that's going to do it. When you look at providing training for teachers, teachers need to have that training to be able to implement that, and the coaching. You know, once they're trained, they need someone to help support them as they're implementing that in the classroom. So right away, we have something that's going to work, and there was almost no money given. $50 million is a drop in the bucket for what you need to pay to have curriculums in every single school, to have every single teacher trained, and to make sure that we have coaches that will be there. So it was great to talk and hear, hey, we're on the same page. We need more money, right? I mean, there really does need to be money brought along with it. And then we have children right now in kindergarten through third grade that need to be able to read, that can't wait 2 years for legislation, right? Or 2 years for money to be released. And so that is Forward Scholars, right? We decided, thanks to Common Ground, who surveyed the community and said, what do you need? What do you see needs to happen with this ESSER fund, this COVID relief money? And the community said, kids have to be able to read. And so they did something not to do to, but to do with, and to partner and to collaborate and to say, there's no one of us that can do it by ourselves. We have to do this together. We have to bring the community in and be part of the solution. And so it's been an absolute joy to work with Dr. Caselius and Dr. Jimenez Bell, because they see that and they buy into the idea that teachers need to get trained, right? Teachers need to know how to teach reading. It's a code, it's systematic, 95% of the English language is a code. There's just a lot of rules. So you got to know those rules to be able to teach them, right? But in addition to that universal instruction, there are always going to be anywhere from 10 to 25% of kids that are going to need more intensive instruction, not just the differentiation in the classroom, but that are going to need intense either intervention or support. And that's what Forward Scholars is here for, because teachers can't do it. They can't do everything. And unfortunately, because you have this absurd notion in the community now that teaching isn't an actual profession. Have you heard that? Yeah. So, when you have absurd notions like that going around, who's going to want to join the team, right? We have to value and respect teachers. We have to value the profession. We have to recognize that teachers need to get trained and they can't do everything on their own. So Forward Scholars is a tutoring program that brings the community, and there's many tutors in here. If you're a Forward Scholars tutor, will you raise your hand?
Yeah, you got quite a fan club here. I realized after 4 arrests. And I to digress,
Yeah.
your parents are here from New Glarus.
Yes, and mom and dad.
So welcome to that.
Okay. But these are community volunteers that are dedicating their time to making sure that children can read, because just like you described, it's as much about the curriculum as it is about the relationship, and about having people that come into schools and care deeply for kids and become their person, that build those connections, that help children to know, I can, even if I can't yet. Woo! That was the theme, right? And so so Forward Scholars uses the science of reading. We use Book Buddies, which is a research-based framework. We use community volunteers as mentors and as collaborators and as partners for children. And we have certified teachers that write individualized lesson plans, which are the personal reading plans that kiddos need in that 25 percentile or below, and they implement those twice a week with fidelity. And we have results that show that students grow an average of 2 years of growth in 7 to 9 months of tutoring in reading accuracy and fluency, which is all those early literacy standards that they need. So we are here, and we are collaborating and partnering because we know that teachers need to be educated, but we also know that teachers and districts and and staff can't do it alone, and that they're always going to need people that are going to help provide these interventions and that tutoring for kids because they can't do it on their own.
Dr. Howard Fuller, who speaks highly of Forward Scholars, I might add, but he also has been emphatic, and this is a direct quote, we can't tutor our way out of Milwaukee's reading problems because they're just too big.
Yep.
What are you seeing out there in the broader picture? Are things changing? Is the potential for improvement there?
Yeah, I think that Act 20 was a great impetus for this. And like Dr. Jimenez Bell said, some districts had already started, right? And said, hey, guess what? There's a code. Let's teach the children the code because it's the same one that's been around since the beginning of the language, right? And so I am seeing shifts, right? I'm Dr. Jimenez Bell with even implementing a word study block in kindergarten through 3rd grade and 4th and 5th grade classrooms. That is providing that time and that opportunity for kids to explicitly learn the code and for teachers to have time to differentiate, because every kid is going to need that universal instruction, but then there needs to be more. But then in addition to that, we're seeing that MPS, that school staffs that are truly willing partners and saying, hey, you know what? If you bring in the people and bring in a research-based curriculum, we're on board, and we're going to work with you to make sure this is happening. So I do really see that there are changes happening, and it can't happen fast enough without the resources. Yeah. There has to be more money put into providing the training that teachers need. There has to be more money to make sure that every school has all the curricular materials that they need. And then on top of that, we can't lose sight of those 10 to 25 10 to 25% of children that are going to need more because forward scholars can't get to every kid. So how do we work to make sure that every kid does have that access?
Let's do one, I hope, fairly quick round here to all four of you. What do you hope to see 5 years from now, pursuant to Act 20, pursuant to any effort to really change the reading realities statewide, but especially in the places where it's most needed, such as Milwaukee? Representative Whitkey, 5 years from now.
Well, I would hope that that we would see an improvement in reading, and I know you can gauge it by different tests, different results, and different so on, but technology is going to change in 5 years. I just saw demonstration of a program through AI that can tutor kids with a device because it can learn what the student does and does not do well. There has to be a bridge between the student and family or outside of the school to reinforce that. One of the things that I also see is that we are behind. So Dr. Seidenberg at Wisconsin is one of the people that first started talking about the science of reading. And I had the pleasure of meeting with him in my office. And I didn't really forget what it's like meeting with someone from a very smart professor and going back and forth. But I just took a look at his bio, and he told me at the time, and this is 2 to 3 years ago, science of reading is the first step, but there are all these other factors that have to be built in to address things. You can't just stop here, you have to move on. And so he is doing additional research on, I saw in his bio, on what it takes to get minority children to read better. So I'd be really interested in that. But I think it has to do with more people in the community demanding that we can't go on like this. I mean, you can look at me and say we don't spend enough. I hear that minute by minute. But let's face it, everything on the spend is locally controlled. How many people get interested in their educational system to say, how is it being spent? Could we do a better job? It's going to take, like I said, it would take everyone in this room. I would just like to see us start to make some progress so I don't have to go into schools and see kids that are going to miss opportunities.
Barb Novak.
Yeah, my heart wants every single kid to be a confident reader, to be able to say that they are a reader and that they want to be a reader and that they know that that's what's going to unlock their ability to change the world. My brain knows that that happens through building systems. Individual teachers in the classroom can do amazing things. They can't do that for a sustained period of time without the support of a system. And the school system can't do that without the sustained support from the state. So my heart wants every kid to identify as a reader and to be able to read. My brain knows that we get there by building systems. And every kid means every single kid. It means my nephew who communicates nonverbally. It means my other nephew who never stops talking. It means every child in every language that their family wants them to be using. It means every race. It means every zip code. It means rural as much as it means urban. It is every kid.
Gabby.
I want to say
5 years from now.
5 years from now. I want to say everything that Barb loves. Always, every time. And I think I have the system. I think that, like, what I dream.
I want to be able to help you pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we write that down somewhere? I would say that the system, like, of my dreams is that we're getting out of this response to intervention where we're waiting for kiddos to fail to save them, but we move into a multi-tier system of support with really, really powerful, predictable clear and well supported tier 1, because at the end of the day, all will read, and all means all, we say in MPS, and that requires first and foremost tier 1 instruction. So of course we will attend to babies that need more, but we need to ensure that the first tier 1 instruction is state of the art. Passing it to you, my dearest.
And yes. And yes. And in 5 years, I truly believe that what's going to get us there is collaboration. All 4 of us sitting up here want the same results. We know it takes money. We know it takes trained teachers. We know that it takes time. And so in order to do that, we have to be willing to collaborate. We have to be willing to listen to someone like Dr. Fuller. He's absolutely correct. We can't tutor our way out of this, because tier 1 universal instruction has to be in place for every child. And children need early literacy experiences and time at home to listen and read books. Students need Bernie's book bank to provide books for them to read at home once they're learning the code at school. Students need things like the Milwaukee Reading Coalition and Commission, which is focused on universal tier 1 instruction and supporting schools and Milwaukee Public School District, and making sure that there are partners in getting teachers trained, because there isn't enough money, right? So how do we, I see us up here having this conversation, learning how to work as partners, how to reach out and bring the community in as collaborators, and making sure that we're providing what kids need at tier 1 level, both from a teacher standpoint and a training standpoint, but also bringing the community in to build connections with kids so that they are successful, even when it's not just that classroom instruction.
The Milwaukee Reading Coalition, just to mention that, and we have one of the co-chairs in the room here, hello, is the first time I've seen in the 412 years I've been following this stuff, that there really is a broader effort to engage the community, to have community leaders from a wide range of positions come together and say, hey, we got to do something about this. I hope that's an important thing. This is a community here of people who care, and it felt like almost everybody here was volunteering for Forward Scholars already. But,
There's literature on the way out.
but I was just going to say,
You can even sign up.
so to have that sense of, hey, we got to do something in a broader sense beyond the walls of the schools, I think that's important, and I think that's one of the things that is happening now, and I hope it pays off. We've gone a little longer on the conversation here than I might have envisioned, so I'm not doing any questions or comments from all of you. She's doing great. Don't worry about it. But I think we should probably wrap this up. I bet at least some of our speakers here can hang around and talk with people. I think these sessions are really important because I hope they not only shed some light, but they create some momentum and on something that is so important as reading. So a great thanks again to Maya Smart for her program several weeks ago. Great thanks to the 4 people here. As Carrie was saying, we offered Forward Scholars a chance to put some materials out there. We also put out copies of 2 recent editions of the Marquette Law School magazine, Marquette Lawyer, each of which has a story about education in it. I almost am reluctant to say I wrote both of them. But they really do focus on, can we make teachers more effective? What would it take to make things better? Why do so many things that have been tried over the years why have they brought such little in the way of change in a positive direction? I hope these sessions, I hope those articles are helping to prod more attention, more momentum, more change, and to make things better. And I think that said, thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
And we'll keep doing these things.